signal I need to cut across 8 lane. None? I turn now. Good luck, everybody else!
Here's an elephant in the room. Asians are bad drivers.
I don't believe it.
Or at least that's what I heard most of my life. It went beyond jokes, and it wasn't even something meant to be an insult. It was something that many people, maybe most people, just assumed was true. We often heard the same thing about women drivers. And while it seems odd that some races are worse drivers than others, that part's actually true. When I dug into the stats, I found massive differences between ethnic groups in America. I'm talking about an almost 900% difference in the likelihood of dying in a car crash between the riskiest and the safest racial group in America. It's huge. So car crashes kill a whole lot of people. The CDC says it's the leading cause of death for people under 55 years old, and they kill about 35,000 Americans annually.
It's behind us.
Think of it as a city the size of Parkland, Florida, disappearing every year. So anything that helps people better understand why one group is safer than another can give us lessons and literally save lives. Now, there's a whole lot of ways to measure driving skills and what's a bad driver. Accident rates, speeding tickets, the percentage that pass their test the first time. But what really hits home is the deaths per mile driven. That eliminates elements that may or may not exist, like unreported accidents, or cops more likely to give tickets to one group than another.
Seatbelt.
The latest numbers from the Department of Transportation show that for every 100 million miles in a passenger vehicle, there's an average U.S. fatality rate of 0.78. Broken down by ethnicities, the safest group in the country is, by far, Asians. So much for stereotypes. Asians die at about 1/3 the rate of the average American per mile driven on the road. Why? First, they're the least likely group to cause a fatal crash while drunk, and alcohol is a factor in about half of all serious crashes. Second, they're the least likely to crash while speeding. And finally, they have the lowest rate, by far, of people dying without wearing their seatbelt. As it turns out, that's the big three in predicting death behind the wheel: drinking, speeding, and not wearing a seatbelt. Steer clear of these and you're about 10 times safer on the road. Before going on to the rest of the racial groups though, let's take a quick look at another two factors: sex and age. How about bad women drivers?
You would maybe not be a very good driver.
Oh man, am I a woman?
Well, a Johns Hopkins study showed that per mile, women had about a 10% higher rate for all crashes. But when we look at fatalities per mile, as we've been looking at before, women are about twice as safe as men, who have a tendency to drink, speed, and not wear their seatbelts. Men's only saving grace: they're more likely to drive bigger cars and trucks, which fare better in crashes. And ages? As you might guess, people in their teens and 20s are the most dangerous on the road. People in their middle ages do the best. And old people, well, their numbers don't really rise until they get in their 80s, when they turn into teens again, at least statistics-wise. So back to our racial breakdowns. Again, Asians, clear winners. Hispanics and whites are the next safest group, right around the same rate as the average American. Blacks have a jump, a little over 50% more fatalities. But the one group that truly eclipses everyone else is Native Americans, who come in at over 2 deaths per 100 million miles. Why? Well, some people point to factors like urban versus rural driving, or so-called racist roads with poor infrastructure, or more dangerous cars, or other factors like medical care. But looking at the numbers, it's impossible to ignore the big 3 factors I mentioned earlier. Those stats and behaviors drive the overall death rates. But there's great news in all of this, is that we're getting smarter and safer. The last few years have seen an uptick in highway deaths, but better cars, infrastructure, and quite frankly, smarter behavior have led to plummeting death rates. In fact, the fatality rates are 5 times better than when I was born in 1965. Driving is safer than ever before, and the number of people not dying on the roads is absolutely staggering. But to keep those numbers going in the right direction, we have to take a clear look at what's happening and not be afraid of unpleasant statistics that might make some people uncomfortable. By looking at our problems honestly, they're easier to solve. I hope I made you at least a little smarter today. Drive smart, drive safe, and come back and watch more videos. Take care.